You're listening to Art Workers with Carl Bindman. That's me. The interview for today's episode was recorded May 22nd, 2025. In this conversation, I talk with Caden Rodems-Boyd and Tris Arthur, the writer, director, and intimacy coordinator and producer on this film, which at the time of recording was called Dying Alone and is currently called Last Train Home. I acted in this film. We are anticipating a release date of sometime this year, which is very exciting. I talk with Tris and with Caden about filmmaking, about fostering an environment on set that is conducive to the flourishing of all, the specifics of preparing for intimacy coordination, and a little bit about George Lucas and his particular interests. Over to you, Carl. All right. Well, everybody, welcome to another episode of Art Workers, the Independent Artists Forum. I am your host, as I just mentioned, Carl Bindman. And this is the first episode that is kind of, I think, fulfilling the explicit goal of what the podcast is supposed to be, of like a kind of archive of conversations in progress with cool artists that I know, because I'm joined now by two artists for the very first time, two artists who I am in the middle of making a movie with. So this is as close to having a conversation between takes as you could get without me schlepping all my bullshit to a set. So I'm very pleased to introduce Caden Rodems-Boyd and Tris Arthur, whose name I totally said right the first time and did not edit out a mistake about. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us on, Carl. It's a pleasure. I think you should always go for a wrong last name, because isn't it fascinating to hear what someone thinks your last name could be?
That's true. I kind of wish I got to hear like what you were gonna say.
Well,
it would have been Arthur, I think.
It would have been Arthur.
I don't know what you're talking about, because I totally have you in my contacts as Tris Arthur and texted Tris Arthur about this just earlier today. Yeah. So I
assume the contacts are like Tris intimacy coordinator ? Producer ?
Well, that is the thing, is I know you as an intimacy coordinator who coordinated the intimacy of my death in the movie that we made together. Caden, you were the director of that movie, which I hear might be having a name change.
The movie may be having a name change. That's been a kind of terrible crucible for me as an artist.
The crucible is taken.
Well, you're right, but a terrible crucible for me as an artist could work as a title, don't you think?
Oh, it's giving a director.
It's giving director, yeah. And that is what I'm always trying to give at any point. The name change has been tough because it's like, basically I have two producers currently helping me on this movie. Tris, who is my confidant, my kind of artistically minded producer, who is helping to fight for the vision of the project. And then I have Louie, who you've also met, who is the no nonsense kind of, he does the legal producing. He's been doing our contracts. He handled the insurance. Tris, meanwhile, is the person who, like, you know, we have a person on set who's like about to fucking take a hammer to the hard drives and smash them. And Tris is the one talking them off the edge. And I was thinking, if only one of them says to me that we should change the name, then, you know, that's just personal preference.
Tris? Did you say we should change the name?
I did.
Really?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Well, I don't know if we said so far what the actual name of the film is currently. The working title.
The working title of the film is Dying Alone. It was months ago that Louie said to me, before we were even shooting the film yet, he was like, you should think about that title. It's a little bit alienating, perhaps, for.
But it's Brechtian. It's alienating in like a compelling way.
I think it's provocative.
Yes.
You know, I feel that it
gets the people going.
It gets the people going, exactly. And then Tris came to me from the opposite perspective and also essentially said, maybe you should think about changing the name. So,
well, what do you have as names to float? We can test them. We can workshop them.
I think this is great. I mean, true, like glimpse behind the curtain.
Yeah, Tris, what do you have?
Well, this is the problem. I don't know if I have anything that I would necessarily say is better. And that's why we were at such a standstill with this and why the name is still currently dying alone, is because I do think there's a better name out there, but finding the right name for this film is like truly a challenge, like something that we are all really struggling with. So we've like tossed stuff around. Like, what are some top?
I mean,
contenders?
I have a whole fucking notes app document, and names always look worse when you put them right consecutively, one after another, right? But I mean, I think that the temp name right now is probably just the Night Lodge, which is a major location where kind of the bulk of the action of the film takes place.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good name.
I don't really think it's a good name either.
I agree.
Was that yours? No.
Generic.
Was it Lewis's?
No, it's kind of nobody's. There's no one else is stepping up to own another name.
I've like
yet.
proposed some and they never get any acknowledgement, which is like my sign that they're no good.
Well, okay, let's do two things. The first is I'm gonna put the cable on Caden's microphone in the cable holder.
Cable holder. I'm going to say something so genius while you're doing this that you can't edit it out. I've missed my chance.
You did. So let's do something. Let's workshop some names right now. I mean, well, actually, before we do some bullshit, maybe what is the movie?
Tris, I want to hear your pitch for what the movie is.
So the movie is like I would say sort of a horror fantasy romance about a woman who travels to this mysterious lodge in the middle of nowhere and meets this cast of like really unique and kind of out there characters who all like bring different like corners of like trauma to the table. But all of them are there at the end of the day to end their lives in the company of others. And as the night goes on, the woman, Julia, has to recount her story to all of them about this like traumatic relationship in her recent path that led her to go to this place, and to seek the company of others to end her life alongside them. And as the night goes on, we sort of see, you know, slowly the cast of characters around her thins out. And that's really like the jumping off point for the movie. And I don't want to like give away where it goes. I would like to say it's like the challenge with this film is that it sounds extremely bleak and hard to watch.
But it's like funny.
Yeah, it's funny.
It's kind of a dark comedy.
Yeah. And it's like there's like a romantic angle to it, not just in the fact that it literally has like a romance plot line, especially given the places that plot line goes, but the way that everything is filmed and written, like it has a romantic energy to it and like a fantasticism to it. And I love that about the film. It's just, it is like fun in a way, and it's not as weak as it sounds. And at the end of the day, it's meant to be understanding and almost like comforting and rejuvenating. Like it doesn't end in a way that's like, oh, life is hell and this sucks, you know?
It's kind of like I mean, this is the feeling that I had reading it, because yeah, I don't know if this was also evident to people, but I'm in the movie. I play one of the characters. I play a character called the Birthday Suit. When you sent me the script in the audition process, like what I loved about it was, yeah, it deals with difficult material, but at no point does it feel like voyeuristic or nihilistic. Like it's like it treats a serious thing sensitively, but also understands that we're here to like explore and play, that it's art. And yeah, I mean, it's challenging, but I think really good and cool.
It was very important to me. I think it's ultimately a movie where I think the two central themes of it are love and suicide. And the lens through which we're viewing love is a main character who is looking back at a really terrible past relationship with whatever the opposite of rose-tinted glasses are, right? Like absolute cynicism. And it is, in my mind, I think that the same way that when a relationship is ending, you start to feel you're kind of sappiest about all of the great moments of it. I think that when you're choosing to end your life, it's not just this like dark hole of constant misery. You're in this manic state where you're ready to receive the most kind of powerful, affirming reminders of all the love that you feel for all of the people and places. But also you're ready to be in the darkest, bleakest place possible. And I think for me, the chemistry of the movie is really about balancing this very heavy subject matter with the honesty of being like, when you're in this position, it's not just depressing all the time. Like, you're laughing at yourself and you're crying about the things that are now coming back to the surface because you're picking at those scabs. And it was definitely like my intention to create a film that, when pitched, sounds really dark, but when you actually watch it, is able to encompass a much a broader emotional palette than that.
Yeah. And like something I also appreciate about the script is like the way it's structured with like, she's at the lodge and is like meeting these characters and sort of sharing her story, and then cut back with like the arc of it is the tonal shifts, I think, really serve each other well, of this kind of bleakness that's kind of funny, and then back to this like romance that is really bleak in a lot of ways. And like, when I was reading it and it was like, oh, and now COVID happens and they're stuck inside and it sucks so much shit, I was like, yes, hooray, finally. Like, I feel like for projects that are written to be in that time, it's either we're not going to talk about it, or we're going to fictionalize it such that it never happens, or we'll hand wave it away with like, I mean, in Glass Onion, how they have, you know, the vaccine super early just for the super rich spray, you're good. But like for a project to kind of sit with COVID happened and it was bad, actually, was also kind of refreshing.
I think we really need to start integrating COVID into the stories that we're telling. And I think that the feature that I made before this, the premise of that was, it's about this group of kids who are in their early 20s. They're all basically on the precipice of graduating college, and they went to high school together. They were in a band together in high school, and none of them, they all kind of fell off and hadn't talked since. And right at the start of the movie, the premise is COVID hits. They all have to go back to their hometown and be quarantined. And they decide to like pod up, get the band back together and make an album together. And that was made when we were still much more intensely in lockdowns. And I think in many ways, that was kind of my COVID processing movie. I think the reality is, most audiences don't quite want a movie that is like really about COVID. I think that you will get, within the next 10 to 20 years, one or two movies that are like the big COVID movies tackling COVID. But I think it's really important that we start to integrate it into our slice of life stories about like, yeah, this is a real, not just a thing that happened to all of us, but like a huge defining moment in American history that 50 years from now, we will look back on and be like, whoa, like more people died during COVID than
1 million people died. A million people died in America alone.
Yeah.
It's like,
and not only that, but we felt the kind of day in, day out trauma of that, and the system shock of having to completely change our lifestyles. And we dealt with the culture war bullshit around it and everything. And it's like, we need to be able to talk about it a bit.
Well, one of the things I think that is clever about the movie using COVID is that it's like these two kind of impossibly big topics is suicide and COVID. And it's like, what can talking about the experience of each of these kind of tell us about the other? And, you know, to avoid having too much of a critical theory circle jerk, maybe we can table that for a little bit later in the episode when it's appropriate. But on the level of like kind of like maybe familiarizing the people listening with this project. So I know how I got on the project. I submitted to your listing on Backstage and had an audition and got cast. And Tris, I don't actually know how you got involved in the movie. Do you want to share that?
Yeah. So I know Caden from college. We both went to the same school. We graduated around the same time. And I worked on his thesis film as an intimacy coordinator. And that's kind of the first time our paths crossed.
How did we even get connected to each other? Was it my producer?
From what I was told, I think by you, when you first reached out to me. You had just heard my name around as someone who, like, one was working on a bunch of projects and getting films like directed and made within the college that were having some amount of recognition. And then two, as someone who was advocating for accessibility within the college at the time, through some of the projects I was working on, and then also working as an accessibility coordinator on someone else's thesis film. Between those things, from what I remember, is what made you reach out to me, and you might have heard my name through someone else.
So
and
yeah, you were my IC initially.
Yeah, so I was your IC.
And we did a whole shoot together where you were.
Exactly.
And it was great. You did a great job. And then for this shoot, we reconnected.
Yeah, circled back.
Was this the first thing you'd done since?
This was my first post thesis project. So I made a feature before this, and then I made my thesis film in between those. And then I kind of took a long break, and then this has been the like slowly working back up to a really big scale project. But for a while you were the IC on this project, and it was only once we actually got on set and started shooting, and you know, as is the nature of these kind of micro budget productions, like some people just rise to the top, and every time that there was...
And others sink to the bottom.
Others sink to the bottom and are dismissed after 2 days of shooting, and their entire role is cut down to just, 5-6 pages?
I think like 3, maybe?
3 pages? That's rough.
It's going to be... is too many, yeah.
Well, it'll probably end up as more like a minute or two in the movie.
Oh,
the
thank God.
Final version.
Spare the audiences. Yeah.
But yeah, every single time that there was a fire to be put out on set, Tris was there, either putting it out or at least pointing at it and saying, guys, there's a fire. It became very apparent very quickly once we were actually on the shoot that you were going above and beyond in terms of accessibility coordination, and it would be a mistake to not have you in a more key role on the project.
Yeah, and that's kind of how this all came about. It's like, I think for an audience, like people hearing about this, it's weird to imagine like an intimacy coordinator or an accessibility coordinator going and then becoming a producer on a film, because I think producers, like, there's a idea around producers that they are like maybe evil and like primary concern is like getting the movie made at whatever cost. But I don't think that necessarily has to be true, because for me it felt like a natural evolution of the work I was doing on set, and like the reason I really wanted to step up and like just started doing a lot of producer duties. It was an extension of my work as an IC and as an accessibility coordinator, because at the end of the day, what I wanted to do in those roles was make set as comfortable and good as it could be for everyone. And there was a point in the shoot where it became clear to me that in order to make that happen, I would need to, step up and do some things that don't usually fall under the purview of an IC in order to make set a more pleasant environment for everyone. And that does like end up becoming like a producer task, because producers are the people in power on set to like organize it in such a way that it is a pleasant experience for everyone. I think a good production team is a hugely important part in making set a good space for everyone. I guess that's why for me it felt like a natural kind of evolution in my duties to go from like being the IC to being the producer. And now I'm stepping down. We're hiring a new IC because at the end of the day, it is a conflict of interest.
Because like the intimacy coordinator needs to have the autonomy to advocate against the producers,
yes.
Right? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. But
that was basically the minute that we promoted you. We were like, okay, well, you can't IC anymore.
Exactly.
You're starting to care too much about the movie getting made. I think that there are a few very obvious, extremely valuable commodities on sets like these. Time is one of them.
By sets like these, what do you mean?
I mean sets that have no money at all, and ultimately we went from being a shoot as the production ballooned more and more, and we ended up spending money in different departments and then being like, okay, well, if we've spent this much money on this thing, then we have to spend this much money on this other thing. So we ballooned from being a set that really had no money, as in like, we're trying to make this whole film for like 10 to 15K, to being closer to probably a 50K shoot all in all. But in any case, we had no money, right? It is not like a professional film set to an extent of like, people are not there because it's a job. People are there because they are taking the time out of their lives to work on something that they are really passionate about and want to bring to life. Even if it's people who only have a small point of connection to the project, they are passionate specifically about at least the work that they're doing for us on set. And I think that what ends up becoming the most valuable commodity is trust there, right? Because if you maintain people's trust, they will cut you a lot of slack and they will say, okay, this day was disorganized, or, we had a really late night, morale is low, whatever. But ultimately, we trust both that the project we're making is good, but more importantly, we trust that we have the respect of the people who are helming this, right? Like, whoever is steering the ship is doing their best to steer in the right direction. And I think that the thing that became really quickly apparent with Tris was that she had that trust with the cast and crew. And when there was an issue, people always felt comfortable going to her about it and flagging it. And that kind of thing is like, you can't, it's invaluable, right? Because the amount of potential huge problems that you catch because someone has gone to Tris about it on day one, rather than allowing it to like slowly fester over the course of the shoot until it's a big issue. I think that I totally agree that it was actually like a very natural transition point to go from accessibility coordinating to a very kind of people forward style of producing for us.
I'll say that also, like, on the level of it being natural, what felt natural was I did feel naturally trusting in you. Like, when you showed up on set, when we were, in the car driving up, because we drove up together from New Haven. And I'm curious, like, in your process as a intimacy coordinator, like, what do you do to build trust on a set?
It's a difficult question because I feel like it's half of it maybe is like strategy, but the other half of it is just like personality. I don't think you can, like, if you are innately not going to be good at that, I don't know if it's like something you will excel in. However, I basically like to try to build trust with people. It's really just about having like conversations and like being an open person who people can talk to and who people know they can talk to and trust, and who will listen to them. Because that's the big thing. Like, when I'm meeting new people on a set, I make sure like everyone knows who I am. Everyone knows they can come to me and that they're not bothering me. Like, I'm happy to talk at any time. And I never want people to feel like they can't come to me. And so that means like very early in the shoot, just establishing myself as a presence on set and going and having individual conversations with everyone, learning as many names as I can, making sure I'm really absorbing all of that information. And checking in with people is such a huge thing. Like, just being someone who will go around and be like, how are you doing? Like, how are you hanging in there? Like, everything okay? Can I get you anything? Just establishing yourself as a presence that people can rely on, that people don't feel like they're like annoying when they like come to you and are like, here's how I'm feeling, here's my problem, here's what I need. You need to have a sort of like openness to that.
And you say that like it's a temperamental thing and also a tactical thing, but like these are tactics or I don't know what you want to call them, tools that are available to everybody. And like, I've been on, like, I don't know. I don't even know what I say about my own career stuff on this podcast, but like, to people who are listening, I recently joined Actors Equity, and like, I've been doing a lot of auditions for equity projects. And so because I'm not like constantly booked doing non-union shows, have been doing more short films. And I mean, this was my first feature, which is fucking super cool. And thank you for having that be my first feature. But like, I've been on, you know, a lot of sets at this point, in a lot of rehearsal rooms for theatrical productions, and also in, you know, just non-artistic life. I've had jobs, as one does. And these sorts of behaviors are just universally good to do. It doesn't matter if you're in a position of power. It doesn't matter if you're just a colleague. Like, caring about the people that you're working with is good and helpful for everybody. And it's like so not the norm. It's fucking crazy. Like, I did a short the weekend after we shot ours that was like so disorganized. There was no trust. It was like really, really toxic. Actually, I was supposed to shoot for 2 days. After the first day, I said I wasn't coming back.
Wow.
And it was like such a difference being on your set, which was a challenging set, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But like, there was care and trust and intentionality trying to be built and being built, and to go from a space that's like careful and considered, dealing with challenging material, which also I think facilitates working on the challenging material, to go to a space that was like frivolous and careless was really, 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 I think it highlighted for me what a good job you all did. So I just want to say it was felt and noticed and noticeable, the work that you put in. Even in the beginning when it was a little bit rockier, it was like the effort being made was real.
And it hurts me to hear that you had such a bad experience after that, because I think it's so easy to care about people. And I think that it's so key to the work that you're doing. Because in my opinion, like coming at this from a production standpoint, but also like any artistic standpoint, you should never have an environment on a set or in any creative space that is like unwelcoming and cold and like uncaring, because that's like not only going to affect your people, and like just as a human you shouldn't be doing that to people, but also it affects the work so much.
Yeah,
like,
I'm not going to give a good performance if I don't like you. Well, that's not true. I'll be a professional, but like, I'm not going to give you
Carl on record saying, if I don't like you, I will tank your film.
Yeah. But seriously, like, I mean, there is a difference, right, between somebody who is going to give it their all because they love the people they're working with versus somebody who is there because they are doing their job.
I think on productions like this that are these like scrappy passion projects, I can't imagine working any other way. I mean,
and the thing is I think the other way is that people try to use not having resources as an excuse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's just not actually an excuse.
I think that's the thing. People can tell the difference. Like, every time that we could not make something happen for someone to give them some amount of comfort or luxury or space, rest, whatever that we needed, I think we had a very strong excuse to point to. And I think very early on, it was apparent to us that like people don't really care. Like, you know, the baseline for people is that line that you cross of, do I trust the people helping this production? Will I follow them wherever they ask me to go? Or do I not? And like, you know, there were multiple times where I was like, oh my God, this would be so much easier if we had so much more money. But the only reason that I would have wanted to have more money for that shoot in the first place was that so I could have spent more time around these people who I love being around and love working with, and so that I could have made their experience working on the film breezier by giving them extra hands on set, or by giving them more days off, by like having less packed days in the first place, all of that. But I think that it is so difficult to make a film, and it is so emotionally taxing, especially when it's a project like this one, which is shot over the course of many months and, you know, takes control of years of your life. I have been on a lot of sets where the vibe is basically open hostility, if not apathy. And I cannot wrap my brain around why you would enter a field that is already just constantly like hitting you over the head with a baseball bat, and then, you know, go into it and treat the people that you're working with that way too. When I'm like, for me, the trade-off that I make is I have barely a life outside of the film for the duration of the time that I'm in production on a feature. I want to feel like I'm at least like scratching that social itch with the people that I'm working with. I want to come out of 2 weeks of shooting in Vermont and be like, well, in a way, I kind of got 2 weeks of like hanging around the people that I love to be around. And it might have been the most taxing experience of the year, but it's also the most restorative. And you can lose that really, really easily.
Yeah. I had a friend on, this podcast will probably be releasing several months after that. Several months. God, I hope not. This podcast will be coming out a couple weeks after the one that was before it, because that's how scheduling works, ? But the last episode, which was recorded yesterday, was with a friend of mine, Michael Landis, who is a playwright and a performer and a dramaturg. And we've made shows together. And like the something we were talking about was how theater in particular is kind of like marginal culturally. It doesn't have a lot of power. It doesn't have a lot of influence. It is by nature local and ephemeral. And the hope of your work of art being like, this is going to change people's lives, this is going to do whatever, is like really particularly, I think, shown the lie in a theatrical process. Where, you're working on it for 2 months, people come in, they sit with it for 2 hours and then leave. And maybe they had a good time. But like the primary people who are going to be engaging with the work are the people who are making it. And that's true of film too, although film is perhaps less marginal culturally, just thanks to...
It's getting there.
Well, we still have the advantages identified by our good friend Walter Benjamin in his work, The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. That has not gone away. But the fact of the matter is that even if your film does reach, 3 packed auditoriums, so that's what, like 1,000 people maybe, the majority of time spent with the film still will be the people who made it and the community around it. And it's like, truly, that's the point of making it.
Yeah.
And I think any other point is like megalomaniacal to the point of delusion, at least at this level. Once you have like fucking David Zaslav breathing down your neck, who knows? But that is certainly a megalomaniac to the point of delusion anyway. So
I think Zaslav is in some ways taking some, Benjamin might approve, like some anti-photography action by just deleting things off the face of the earth before they can even, reach the public sphere.
Yeah,
right.
Can't have an aura if you don't exist, motherfucker. I'm David Zaslav.
And yet, on the other hand, you would argue perhaps that Coyote v. Acme and Batwoman hold more cultural, sway in the public sphere than they might have if not being deleted.
Well, Coyote versus Acme is coming back actually.
Catch-up entertainment.
Just like HBO Max.
There you go. It's on its way back in.
Time is a flat circle. To build on that, I totally agree. Like, it is total folly as an artist to thrive off of the hypothetical fumes of like, maybe a bunch of people will one day think about this as deeply as I have been thinking about it. Right. That has never been a motivator for me, really. You have to expect that an audience will enjoy the work, but I think much more important is that you enjoy the work, right?
And I think that's something I found in like my creative pursuits as a filmmaker, is that weirdly the times when an audience most connects to something I made is like something I made after the point where I realized with myself that like the best things I will make and the most impactful things I will make are films that I created almost entirely for myself as like an act of catharsis, to like process something through the act of creation. I feel like you reach a certain point as an artist where you do begin to realize that like, it's maybe a little naive to be like, okay, I'm going to make this film that's going to change the world. But you can make a film that's going to change your world.
I would say that you can't make a film that won't.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it just so happens that every time you go into making a film with that philosophy, the more a film that I make connects with myself and helps me heal, the more other people connect with it and recognize that and get their own sort of like comfort from it. But at the end of the day, if you're like only making a film thinking about like this hypothetical audience that by all odds might never watch your film, it might not like take off in the way that you might think it would, rather than making it for an audience of one, where, you know, that just people resonate with like seeing something so deeply personal to someone, and they find parts of themselves in that and connect with that experience, rather than something that is like this like broadly appealing mass culture product.
An example that comes to mind for me is Star Wars, actually. Like OG Star Wars 1970 whatever, 70 fucking 74. But like it is this extremely personal, weird thing.
It's 1977.
1977.
Yeah.
Tris knew like that.
2 threw me off because I was like, that's so early.
Well, it's all the 70s. It's all the past. It's all fake. The past never happened. You can't prove it.
It actually happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
You're fired. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Tris is the director now.
Yeah, sorry.
And Tris has a new name for the movie, and it is...
Carl, I don't know.
That's a weird one, but I guess fucking Carl, I don't know. Find it in theaters next year. What was I saying? George Lucas? Oh, yeah, but it is like his personal fucking fetish with like the childhood westerns in Kurosawa. And it's like, I just love this shit so much, and I'll put it all here with my little diagrams and my little characters and go crazy, you know? And then he made a bunch of money off of merchandising, but the film itself was not necessarily like, I'm going to find the best possible audience for this thing. It was just this personal weird project.
And if you were trying to do that with Star Wars, you never would have made Star Wars.
No. Well, that's why the new movies don't work.
Exactly. Yeah. You need to discover. I mean, the reality is you'll never, not to get into Star Wars discourse, because I think there are way more productive, but you will never recreate the magic of the original, because it is a blend of a bunch of different cultural influences that this guy had across his childhood and across his film education coming together to make something that feels what Hollywood always wants, which is brand new and yet exactly like a bunch of other stuff that you've already seen. So it's not threatening, but it's exciting. And the new Star Wars is not gonna be something that is just riffing off of what this guy in the mid-70s was inspired by. Like, the reality is, we don't care about adventure serials in the same ways that we used to. And it's also more niche to care about Westerns and samurai movies. It's also like, there are a million points of inspiration like that we have had across our childhood that could come together to create some fantasy or sci-fi property. And I think it totally does come back to the thing of like, you will never really capture an audience if you are striving to give them what you think they want. You need to pull within yourself. And I think that's part of a kind of larger conversation that we should really be thinking about as artists, about the value of like a work of art versus the value of the kind of communal active practice of making art.
Yeah.
And
well, I think what's happening there is that there's two meanings of value that are being conflated. Mm-hmm. I mean, not that what you're doing, but like when people talk about the value of a work of art, especially a movie, what they are referring to is its fiduciary, financial, the money it makes as a product, whereas the value of it as a community effort cannot be measured in cost. And it's like they are just different kinds of value, and the worth of them cannot necessarily be compared on those two lines, because they are just measuring two different things. One of the infinite and endless problems of filmmaking is they're very expensive to make and need to make money for them to exist. And without any, meaningful government funding here, that means they have to be successful commercial products, but also they are nevertheless community efforts. And that's incredibly valuable.
Yeah. And with, something like this, it is even more so such a community effort, because so many of the people working on it are doing so for free just because they want to work on it. And yeah, I think that the kind of grind-setty, content-brained part of us all as artists is always very drawn to seeing art as these fixed, static objects that just contain the essence of the art within them and can be kind of immutably exploited and passed along and mined by individuals for whatever meaning they want to get out of it. And I think the reality is, when you're an artist, in the position that we're all in, that's not really the way that art manifests in your life. It's a practice. It's a daily thing, and it's much more about all of the people that it connects you to than, like just being Star Wars.
Yeah,
exactly. I think that what you say, Caden, especially applies to the act of filmmaking, because it is the first form of art that sprouted up that was like, it relies completely on a community effort and on connecting people. You can't make a film by yourself. I mean, you can, but it's challenging, and you have to do a lot of stuff that, like, ideally you would be working with other people on.
Well, to bring Benjamin into it is, I think what he said about film was that it's the first work of art that needs to be a mass media.
Yes,
it needs a mass audience, which I guess is kind of the other side of the making of it, but also the reception of it.
And I think the flip side of it is you never want to go in with the expectation that what you're making is going to like mean something to a whole lot of people. If that's motivating you, it's a motivation that will fall out from under you very quickly when you make something and you realize that, like, okay, you're not the next George Lucas. And even George Lucas, I'm sure, had moments in his life where he had to be like, okay, I'm not the next George Lucas. But then you actually stop and think about it and you realize, like, wait a minute, there are a bunch of films that were made for no money that changed my life, that mean a huge deal to me. And, I think my experience working on this has been that it's connected me to a greater number of people than any production that I've worked on in the past. And by sheer force of that, I have gotten some of that, like, positive validation of people who end up collaborating on the film with me, or people who just kind of pass it by and look at it for a minute, saying that the story means something to them. And ultimately hearing that from people who I actually work with means infinitely more to me than it would to know in the abstract that, like, this number of people clicked on the movie on a streaming service. And
you see that, like, tangible impact, like, literally in this room where we're filming this podcast, because Caden and I didn't hang out before, like, working on this film together.
No.
I didn't know who Carl was, but just the act of making this film together has brought us all together, and it makes you quite close in a, like, very quick period of time.
There's a trauma bonding aspect to it too.
Absolutely. But yeah, just through this experience, like, I would call Caden a friend, I would call Carl a friend, and I think that speaks to the tangible impact of filmmaking, even if, like, as you said, it's not like getting a ton of clicks from, like, every corner of the world. Like, at the end of the day, that's not what it's all about. It's about, like, this right here, this little group of people coming together a month after the shoot, just talking about art and movies and friendship.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a reason that the little tagline under my name on my website, which I don't know if you guys have seen my website, but it's pretty cool. It's carlbindman.com. And underneath Carl Bindman, it says, make art, not content.
Beautiful.
Two things. First is there's more shooting to do. And I just want to, offer an invitation to anybody listening who might maybe want to get into the production game. Send some money, friends. We could use any number of itemized donations of $50,000 to $100,000.
I mean, that's not going to be nearly enough for me. I'm thinking more like 50 million to 100 million. We made some script changes.
That's marketing. That's marketing only.
And you're going to have to double that once you go to digital marketing.
Yeah, David, get at us. The other,
you can delete this film, David. I would have no problem. Like, as much as people can get mad at it, I have strongly maintained, if someone would pay me to make every film that I want to make and then just put it in a vault and not let anyone see it, that would be the ideal arrangement for me.
David,
if you ever want to talk.
Someone did that. I forget what filmmaker it was, but he just made a whole film and locked it in a vault, and no one will see it for like 100 years.
Did Robert Rodriguez direct it? It's with John Malkovich.
John Malkovich. It might have been Rodriguez.
Dude, I have a great John Malkovich story that I will tell you guys after Carl says the second thing that he wanted to say.
And the other thing is, talking about practice of, like, art making being a practice, not like a product-oriented sort of pursuit, is something I've been thinking about recently, since joining Equity, most of my acting work has been auditions. And I recently had a sort of epiphany about my auditioning process where I was doing the thing that we talked about what like making a film for an audience is this kind of this weird, hollow, misguided attempt to try to like present something that somebody might want instead of just speaking how you feel about something, speaking your truth in your work. And I realized that like I have been very thirsty, to use, for lack of a better word, in like auditions. Like I'm like, here I am. Please, God, fucking like me. Oh my God, please give me some work. Please, I'll do anything. And that's not what I'm saying, but that's kind of like what is coming through in the reading of the work. Is I really do think that I'm going into a room with this sort of attitude of like, I'm doing this for you instead of I'm doing this for me. And I've been trying to change that, obviously, because it's not productive and it's not healthy. But I'm curious about kind of two things related to this. The first is I'm not a filmmaker. In the same way that like when I'm not on a project, my practice is auditioning. Maybe for intimacy coordination or for directing, like what is your practice when you are not doing the thing itself?
That's a difficult question.
I imagine for an intimacy coordinator, between coordinating, you just got to get laid as much as possible.
Yeah, that's kind of, but like unironically, right? It's so helpful. It is hard to be like, I'm single right now. That makes my job as an intimacy coordinator so much harder because I can't practice choreography with anyone.
But your job as a producer, so much easier.
It's so much easier.
Because you have more free time.
Exactly. This is true, actually.
Do they, in training, do they call out like, hey, like if you're a virgin, like you should go out and get some, like, because it is a very real thing.
I feel like it's implied, maybe. Yeah. I think you need to have some experience, and it is certainly, the more experience you are, the better you will be at your jobs in intimacy.
It's kind of like being a sex therapist, where it's like you go to your sex therapist, you're not going to assume, you don't want to make any assumptions, but part of your brain is like, well, they know what they're doing.
I would assume that my sex therapist has had sex. Like,
well, that they've had sex, but you kind of assume like, and they're like a sexpert, right?
Well, if there's a degree on his wall, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, but you kind of do have to be a sexpert, and that's literally like a word that came up as I was doing IC training. Is like you have to be a sexpert.
Sexpert.
Yes, they did.
Amazing.
They specifically said the word sexpert.
But like, other than getting laid, like what is sort of like, do you build scenarios, or I don't know, because you're the first intimacy coordinator that I've ever worked with.
Yeah, well, what you'll find is that I am fairly new at this, and so I don't maybe have the same answer that say like a SAG recognized IC would have, because I know there are people who like this is their like full-time livelihood and they are always doing things to like build on their work. For me, it's reading what I can, always like, you bring like practicing communication and confidence like into everyday life all the time. So that is a part of it, like just trying to be a pleasant person and making sure that that's something you're like working on in some way. In general, I don't have a great answer for your question because it is also such a new thing. So there aren't like, a million little ways that you're always working on it. I would have better answers for other things like filmmaking or producing or directing or whatever. There are always ways that I'm like iterating on those things. But as an IC, again, it's research, reading, keeping up on what's going on in the world, just like trying stuff when you can, not to go, we're going a little explicit for this, but like,
well, this podcast does have an explicit rating.
That's
for
great.
All of the F-bombs I drop.
Yeah.
Whoa, Carl,
but like,
that's not cool, man. You're straight. You should not be saying that shit on mic.
But you do have to, as an IC, you have to be pretty like open and frank about like sex as an everyday normal thing that you do.
To make people comfortable talking about it on set. Yeah, well, I mean,
I wish, but
I love it. We just interviewed some ICs. What was it, yesterday? And I loved how we had a couple moments in the interviews, like in a job interview, where they're like, "Well, so for example, if she was like straddling him, and maybe you'd want to say like, okay, could you like grind a little more?" You know, like there was like we were literally talking about that. Exactly, it's such an awesome job.
But yeah, to talk frankly about that here, it's like like when I am having sex with someone, there is a level of, you know, what positions could like make sense on camera, or like talking to that person and being like, you know, let's try this thing, you know. And it's kind of like a weird thing, but like, you know, like I like sometimes sleep with an actor, and it like is easy for me with them to like just be like, okay, we have this scene, how can we like make this make sense on a camera? And like working with them as an actor to be like, okay, let's do some blocking and choreography and like see what feels natural for you.
I do think that is like among artists kind of a universal impulse not to have sex. I mean, always be kind of thinking in the back of your head, oh, how does this relate to my craft? Like I was waiting for somebody for a coffee yesterday, and I was very anxious because I had left home without my phone and was like, I made it to the cafe because I kind of remembered the directions on Google, and I remembered the address, I remembered the name of the place. And I was like, okay, I have made it here, I think. But I'm first, and I'm just going to sit here at my little table looking at the door until this person walks in, basically. And it really did feel like an acting exercise of like, you have to wait, but you have to seem like you're not anxious, because what if they walk in and you look crazy anxious, and you have to be casual, but you still also have to be hyper attentive to whether or not they're entering through the door. But also you need to not stress the people at the cafe out by you being so stressed, because you don't want them to think you're weird. And it's like, navigate all of these layers of behavior while being aware of all these layers of behavior, while doing a specific action in a specific way, which is looking and waiting. And it really was just like, this is an exercise. I am doing an acting exercise right now.
I mean, like, there are ways that we're like practicing our craft in everyday life all the time, like whether we intend to or not.
For me as a writer, I mean, it's the simplest pipeline, right? It's like every single lived experience that I have in some way or another eventually gets distilled into some little thing. I think as an actor, right, it's like kind of the first thing you learn is like, you're acting all the time. You're constantly performing. And the difficulty of acting is not even consciously repeating those processes. It's getting to a point of experience where you can unconsciously do it. And rather than acting on stage, you just exist in the way that you exist and perform in your everyday life.
If that's the goal.
If that's the goal. Indeed. Yeah. Right. There are also there's totally a school where acting is about learning precise fine control of your instrument. And for most actors, especially film actors, that is kind of what is required of you. I mean, I think that with film acting, you have a big, from the director's point of view, at least, a big kind of question that you always have to answer about, are you trying to create the space for your actors to exist? Or are you expecting your actors are coming in and basically hitting their beats perfectly in the same way that every other member of your crew is? Like, you just have a job to do.
Well, in your sort of like directing sensibility, is there a kind of practice that you like to make, or like how do you like your actors to be?
It's tough because I think that I always in theory feel like I want to create a really actor-oriented environment. And when I'm working with actors, it's my favorite part of the process. I love being friends with actors. I love being around actors. You guys are all like insane, but also the most charismatic and fun people you'll ever meet. And I think that I always am trying to promise actors, like, this is a slightly unconventional film set in that it's going to be a little more geared towards allowing you guys to do your thing rather than worrying about the 20 other departments who are all trying to do their thing. But then the reality is, when you get on set, the real thing that frees an actor up to have that kind of like autonomy when they're performing, and that like spur of the moment inspiration is really just time. Most of the time, resources, money. Like you hear about, these quote unquote like crazy monster directors like Kubrick, or no one's calling Fincher a monster, but like people think that he's insane because he does so many takes.
A perfectionist.
Right? A perfectionist, right? And you assume that is a director who is basically abusing their actors because they're overworking them so severely. But then you talk to some, I don't personally talk to them, but you read interviews with some of these actors who work with guys like Fincher. And for a lot of actors, that is actually so freeing, because if you know that you're going to do 50 takes, it's just a rolling rehearsal. You're just discovering. And you know that if in discovery you nail it, the camera was rolling and you got it, and you can move on with your lives.
Yeah, there's an interview with Jesse Eisenberg that's like a behind the scenes thing about the first scene of The Social Network that is like that, and he shares like, it was just so fun. It was just so fun to go again and again and again and again and just to play that way. And maybe, the first scene of you feel that way, and then 40 days later you might not.
Oh yeah, and those shoots are he runs crazy long shoots. You're just on it for months and months.
Hey David, get at me. I'll do it. I'm like a younger Jesse Eisenberg who's a less talented actor.
I'm trying to think. I'm like trying to assess what I think Jesse Eisenberg's talent level is, but I think he is actually incredible.
I think he's a phenomenal actor.
Gifted. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I would love, it would totally be my dream to one day get to the point of being well resourced enough to run a set like that. And I think that the thing that happens in the interim is that, you just have to make compromises and have moments where both people are unhappy. There are going to be some moments where your DP and your G&E team are unhappy because like you have a shot with no movement and the lighting has been done and no one has anything to do. But you're on the actor and you're trying to get a monologue perfect. And you'll have a lot of moments where like, unfortunately, the actors are all doing their job and they're doing great, and you have to reset because you're ironing out some other department. And I think that the kind of constant mission for me is figuring out a workflow when you have very limited time and money that gives the actors the kind of rewarding experience that they need. Because with the difference between actors and every other department is that if your gaffer is kind of pissed off, if your DP is kind of pissed off, if your sound guy is grumpy that day, like ultimately they still have a bottom line kind of labor skill set of like, this is what I need to do. Whereas with actors,
the behavior is the job.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're not keeping them in the right emotional headspace, the entire thing can fall apart in a way that no one has any real control over. So we're need such divas. I mean, it's like you get this reputation of being divas, and I think that on set it feels in a kind of visible way like people do so much to accommodate the actors, but it's because the job is not just more difficult at times, but also just so much more nebulous. And like you need to stay in the zone, you need to maintain confidence and feel locked in. And I think that part of caring for your actors is like doing some amount of like emotional well-being, checking in at an enhanced level, right? Not just what you would do with anyone else on set.
Yeah, but also I think that's what makes a professional. They are willing and able to do as much of that work for themselves as they can.
And I think you see a big distinction when working with professional versus amateur actors there, because you can work with amateur actors and get great, really authentic, natural feeling performances out of them. But they're not going to be able to do it on the spot again and again. And they've been working for 7 hours
or
and
17
tired, or 17, and they're exhausted, and they're wearing a costume that's uncomfortable and it's cold, whatever.
Or no costume,
or they're in their underpants, a la Carl in this movie. Just a shout out.
You think I was a professional?
I mean, Carl, for example, Carl actually was like very professional, very good attitude. And you realize that part of the job is maintaining that internal morale over the course of many, many hours of hard work.
Well, here's your $20, but also like, I do think that part of it for me is I do appreciate the work that like the intimacy coordinator, the producers, the gaffers, every single person there is also doing their job. And I really think it's important to honor that by doing my absolute best to just do mine.
Yeah.
And it really does take, I think, a severe breakdown on like a bunch of levels, for me personally, at least, to get to a point where I would be like, well, fuck you, you know, because it's what an unbelievable gift to get to be on a set with these people. It's 5 a.m. We've been going for 12 hours. Okay. We're on a set. It's like, it's,
you're doing it.
yeah. But then also, on the other hand, it is also kind of a trap, because it's like, wow, we're doing this amazing thing. And then you have to be aware of, okay, am I using that to justify mistreating myself? Like, should I not have just said, I'm tired, I'm going to bed, you know? So it's those things to navigate.
There's a very coercive nature. There is a naturally coercive nature to that kind of environment. And I think that there are times when it is crucial, because if everybody was in their right mind and taking care of themselves, no one would make a movie, right? Like, why would you choose to have this job when you could have a job that doesn't require you to be on set for 12 hours?
Yeah.
But
I see thoughts on Trish's face. I'm curious.
you can take advantage of people really easily in that kind of environment, right?
Yeah, like, sorry, wait. Circle back to what you were just saying
about how being on a set and the kind of magic of it is both wonderful and really invigorating, but can also be like a trap in a sense.
Yes.
To mistreat yourself or others.
Yeah, well, because the thing on a set is that everyone on a set environment is working really hard to like make this magical, mysterious thing. And yeah, that is like a wonderful, creative, magical experience for everyone. But also, like, yeah, it's so easy to exploit people in that position. Because I mean, if you're like in a position of power and you have all these people who are like fighting to try and get this thing made with you that like they care about and want to see made and like are part of this magical experience, it's also so easy to then go like, okay, well, if you're so invested in this, like you can like pull a little more out of them, and like it's very easy to exploit that situation, which is why it's so important to like actually look out for your people. And like, if you see someone who cares about the thing you're making, it should be priority number one, not to exploit them, but to treat them well, because they are going to give you good work. They are going to be a pleasant person to have around you. And you don't want to like fuck that up. You want to like see that spark of like, they care about the magic of what you're doing. And you really want to nourish that and like take care of those people, because they will take you so far, like not just on that shoot, but like in this industry, having people who like trust what you do and trust you as a person, who will take care of them, but who will also like bring you into that incredible world of creation that they help foster. But if you're like exploiting people in that mode of thinking, when you're all trying to make something special together, it's not going to stay special for those people. And they're not going to want to continue in that process with you.
That makes me think of two things. The first is that like, I would also extend the idea to like making sure that you're also like kind of watching yourself to make sure that you are not overexploiting yourself. Because I think like, I mean, personally, I know I can get caught up in the like, we're all pushing, we're all working hard, I'm going to dig super deep, and then you just burn yourself out really quick. And I think that is also like an element of like, we're looking out for each other because we're protecting each other, but also we're looking out for each other to make sure that we're not overworking ourselves, you know? And that's where things like union rules on hours and stuff are cool. But then also like, what you were saying about trust and like, you know, you have your community of artists that you work with and that you trust. I mean, the fact that you two went to school together, and then Caden, you brought Tris onto this project because you had a good experience on your thesis, like, and now we're connected this way, like, and how many people know like the core of their collaboration are people they went to school with, because they went through it, they learned together, and then there's that trust. And it's like this ever widening circle of trust of a team of collaborators, which is awesome and also takes care to tend and maintain in like a sustainable way.
Absolutely. But I mean, to go off what you were saying, like I would be having a much less fulfilling life in this present moment if I did not have a pleasant working experience with Caden 2 years ago. And it really does matter to like foster those connections and to keep that spark alive between you and the people that you're working with.
Which I guess is also part of the practice of any artist, of like how to keep doing your work when you're not actually literally doing the work, is to get coffee or record a podcast with the people that you like.
Absolutely. I mean, this is what I was going all the way back to, the kind of what are your artist practices. It's so difficult because being an artist encompasses so many different kind of directions that you have to go. You like, if it was as simple as what do you do to be an artist who has good taste and good ideas and ultimately like makes good stuff, we're not going to call it content, that would be so easy, right? But it's really not about that. It's about kind of being in a constant back and forth of a period of your life where it's all about making more connections and networking and having ways of getting people to actually see your work, and also having ways of building a fulfilling, well-rounded life for yourself outside of your work. And then periods of tunneling in and working really, really intensely on a project and genuinely doing the artistic work of trying to make it as best as it can be. And I think ultimately it's like, it is pragmatic. It is good for a good practice for your current work and your future work to be treating everyone that you work with well. But it's kind of like what you said at the beginning, where like, it just comes down to being a decent person and a decent human being. It's not like any of the kind of producerial or directorial instincts that we're following in terms of like nourishing those connections with people that might, you know, turn into something 3 or 5 or 10 or 20 years down the line. It's just the same thing that you would do as a human being outside of making art. It's being responsible, and it's being a good listener and being receptive and owning when you do something wrong and, you know, working to become better. And I think that like, you know, us enjoying working together on set and then reconnecting had nothing to do at all with really me thinking in a like director brained way, like, oh, I better like build a good relationship with my intimacy coordinator. It really is like, if you're spending all these time with these people, like, you might as well try to become friends. You might as well be the best friend possible to those people. And I'm always curious about how that would kind of change for me if we were working on a project where we had way more people working with us and they were all getting paid. And you know, like, we're paying people, but like if they were all getting paid union scale every single day. And I'm like, I don't really think it would change my disposition, but there definitely would be times where I would be a little bit more of a mean boss, because I would feel like I had the liberty to actually, you know, ask that of people.
Well, I think it just has to do with like intentionality of how you would construct that environment. Like, I mean, I when you arrived here, I did the welcome to my home thing. And it's just that like Francis Ford Coppola comes to mind as a director who very, very, very deliberately made a little literal and also figurative family of collaborators. Mm-hmm. Like, he works with his family, he works with people he's been close with forever, and he did that on purpose.
And I think that's the thing, no matter how large the scale becomes on these things, and no matter how much we are paying people at the end of the day, it is important never to lose sight of the human aspect of all of this work. I like filmmaking is such a communal human activity. And I don't know, it's easy, I think, when you become like reach a certain level of success to lose sight of that humanity. But at the end of the day, I think like the thing that will help any of us make a spot for ourselves in this industry is just like focusing on our human connections and our human selves and our human instincts and not losing sight of that. And that extends no matter how far any of us go. If we just keep remembering to like be good humans and to make good like natural connections with the people around us and not like shut those windows and those doorways, it's like that'll keep us in a good place in this industry.
Yeah, it's to me, I love being on a set. I love working on a project because of a lot of these reasons we've talked about, is the community of it. And for me, what it really is it's flourishing. It's when I'm doing this, I get to be the fullest version of myself that I know I can be. And That is awesome. That is really great. But that's really actually only great if everybody else also gets to. And I think a well-run set is a set where everybody is afforded the opportunity to flourish. And that's really actually not that hard.
Yeah. And also not that common, unfortunately.
Yes.
But I think you're totally right, because I think that you see a lot of sets where it feels like you have built this elaborate machinery around kind of enabling one or two people to flourish, right? It's either the director, or on really photographically intensive things, it's sometimes the DP and their G&E team, and sometimes it's the lead actor, right? Sometimes it's kind of, if not a vanity project, it's like this is all built around the fact that the director knows one actor who they think is incredible and they're doing a project for them. But it's so much more fun when it's like you really feel like every person is like talented and working at their peak level. You get into such a great flow state when everybody on set really sees and respects the work of everyone around them, and when they're conscious of the like necessary ways that work is uplifting their work. I think that like it's so great to me when I see an actor, like even something as simple as just like an actor finding their light in a frame and knowing like, okay, I need to position my body this way so that the lighting that they have set up for me is going to flatter me the most, or tell the story the best. And I think that is a skill that the director gets to see a lot, because the director is the person who's managing every department in that way. But everyone in every position on set, I think, should be really trying to improve that specific skill of like, understand how your work intersects with the work.
How can my flourishing serve your flourishing?
Exactly.
And that is why everybody should read the Communist Manifesto.
We're constantly under threat of just slipping into like a full like dialectical, which I think we should have just a separate podcast for. That's like, because if you want to talk about critical theory, we could definitely do it for a while.
Carl Bindman reads China Mieville's critical essays on the Communist Manifesto.
I think you would have a good audiobook voice for that kind of thing.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Tell your friends, tell your voiceover agents.
I'm actually pretty close with Marx. I don't know if
yeah,
I try not to
Groucho
name.
Or
yeah. I've got his glasses.
I think we're about at time. So before we all go, I do like to ask people if there was anything that you would have wanted me to ask you, or that you wanted to say and didn't get a chance to. So just offer that.
You go first. Give me like 15 seconds.
I need 15 seconds.
Well, I wish somebody would ask me how I'm doing.
Carl, how are you doing?
Ugh, I'm so good, thank you.
That bought me almost the 15 seconds.
Well, now we're like talking, so I can't.
Yeah, I know. I want you to ask me about Star Wars hot takes.
Well, I won't do that. Actually, you know what? We can have that during the outro.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I'll conveniently stop recording.
I haven't watched anything other than Andor in many, many years, so I really don't have anything.
Nothing is also okay.
Yeah. What we were just talking about finding the light reminded me of recently Caden was showing me some like dailies from our shoot, and there are moments in those dailies where like Caden and I would have to fill in at moments and just stand in camera in place of the actors. And it's funny watching like it flash by in like a split second, like Caden and I as villains, to like some actual professional actors, because you can see immediately that we don't know how to find our light. We don't know what we're doing, and there's a reason that we're not the actors, even just like from watching that on like a daily. But
this is what we're saying about acting is such a strange, volatile thing. Acting, especially really good acting on set, it seems like the easiest job. Like, and yet, although sometimes it seems like the hardest job, sometimes the actors come in and it's something like you, for example, like you were having to like summon a bunch of emotion take after take, that can seem intimidating. But
the secret is actually that you just kind of like clench your muscles and it looks like you're having a really hard time, but inside you're just thinking about clenching your muscles.
That's the totally like that's the two schools of acting thing too, of are you actually trying to vicariously kind of experience something before an audience?
I think that my feeling about it is that if I were the kind of actor who were really concerned with psychology, I would not have been able to play a guy killing himself until 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. I think that film acting demands some streak of that kind of like, no, this is about controlling my instrument. This is not about feeling a thing. It's about understanding how to translate. Because also, just because you feel something does not mean that it reads on camera in any way.
It's not about your feeling, it's about the audiences.
No, it's all about how it reads. And a lot of the time, just looking into the light at the right angle and letting it twinkle in your eye will make you look way sadder than, oh, Carl did a great light twinkle right there, for the listeners at home. The only thing that I really had left to say is I feel like I just wanted to reiterate, like we I think have covered a lot of the like, it's exhausting to work on these kinds of things. You have to bend the whole shape of your life around making it happen, and you want to make sure that you're not exploiting people. But I'm glad that we've talked also about the kind of joy and connection that you get out of it, because I definitely have so many good friends of mine who not only so many, the vast majority of people who I am friends with because I met them collaborating with them on some artistic thing. And then there are people who have been basically lifelong friends of mine where I am so much closer to them. And I feel like we have bonded as people, not just in a kind of trial by fire way of like, oh, we were on this shoot together and it was so much work, but like you have shared passion about something. You have like, there is something just so magical about like having your friends who you enjoy spending time with, but knowing that they actually have a skill set that is complementary to yours, and then being able to like make something together by putting that all together. It is just so enriching to human connection. And I really, truly do believe that like, no, not everyone should be going out and making a micro budget film at all. But I believe that working on these kinds of projects has been something that people have done for as long as humanity has existed. And everybody needs to find some way to integrate that into their life at some level. And you have to have a clarity about being smart about who you work with. Should I work with these people just because they're my friends, or should I work with the people who are actually going to be better for this project?
But also sometimes working with people who are talented is worse for the project, because sometimes those people are also like terrible to work with.
Yeah. And I have definitely learned, like after doing this for a while at a micro budget, that you prioritize that kind of social connection over almost anything else. And it will pretty much always pay off for the art if you do, and for your life, because ultimately
you can teach a nice person to act well. You can't necessarily teach a good actor who's an asshole not to be an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah. And ultimately what you're trying to do is not just make a piece of art, but make a life for yourself that feels sustainable. And I think that if you feel that you are building that kind of community through your art, it's going to be there even when you're not working on stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, we were just talking about earlier, like how like artistic practice kind of is present in your everyday life all the time. And that just ties so directly into what you just said. Like we live our art every day. We live our filmmaking every day, no matter what part of that you are like involved in. And yeah, those connections, that the social communities that you form with people, those are going to impact everyday life in so many ways. And it's so important to maintain those connections.
And it makes you a better artist. Like I have become not just a better director, but such a better writer by having intense, delicate, exhausting, rejuvenating experiences on set making these movies. And I'm not writing about people who are making movies, but like everyone ultimately is making art about the connections that they have with the people around them and with their world and their spaces. And I think you need to be going a little crazy and trying to put yourself out there and do as much as possible in order to eventually be able to work that into your own art.
I guess the last thing is, where can people find you and your work? Tris?
You can find me at Tris_Arthur0 on Instagram. I have work kind of like smattered around. You can find links on my Instagram or my website, trisarthur.com. Also like Vimeo. I have a YouTube channel with some video essays, Tris Talks Movies. Yeah, that's kind of me.
Great. Caden?
I am trying to confirm what my Instagram account is even named. You can feel free to check me out on Instagram. I'm Caden_RB. I also am on Vimeo, where I've got a couple things that people could check out, which my Vimeo is just Caden Rodems-Boyd. And we are about to embark on a social media push for the film. And hopefully we will be able to report back if we've got a better thing to plug for the film itself.
Yeah, if there is, it will go right here.
And if not, if there's nothing better and we never get that audio clip in, look up like Overexposed on Instagram, or like Overexposed Films, Overexposed Productions. I don't know what it'll end up being, but there will be a company account sometime soon. So even if the name of the film changes, that won't. So you'll be able to find us there.
And you'll know that it's the right Overexposed because the stuff on that account will be extremely cool and badass.
And it won't be like some beach attire company. That's not us.
And it'll also be appropriately exposed. Thank you both for joining for this conversation. I am really, really pleased that we connected on this film, and I can't wait to see how it's done, and I can't wait to make more movies and more art with both of you down the line.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks so much for having us, Carl.
Yeah, thank you, Carl.
Thank you so much for listening. This was Artworkers with Carl Bindman. Artworkers with Carl Bindman is produced, recorded, sound designed, and edited by me, Carl Bindman. You can reach me at my website, carlbindman.com, or my Instagram, I suppose, at Carl Bindman. Thank you again to Louie Zong for the use of his song Fragments. And, hey. It'll be okay.